I am so honored that you came to hear this story. It's a story that I don't think I'll ever tire of telling, because even though it's the story of a tornado, it's the story of people. And before I start, I'm going to tear up because the lady in the red jacket back there was my assistant at the time of the tornado. And I could not. My life would have been different without Petra. Petra lives here now. She retired, and she saved us. She saved us. We had so much to move out of City Hall, and she carried the brunt of it with her. So I'm so thankful that you're here, and so thankful you are a part of that with me. This picture is just serves as an introduction, but I want to tell you on that night before we start what we lost. We didn't lose any schools. We didn't lose any hospitals, but we lost 24 lives. Everything else after that we lost, we can rebuild. But though we never want to forget those 24 lives that we lost and those families who still mourn. We lost 2 subsidized housing developments, a nursing home, an elderly housing apartment complex, a water tower, which at that time held 600,000 gallons of water, which is 1 million pounds of water, and the structure itself weighed 1 million pounds. So that we first thought that was hit by something that a big school bus, we thought, hit it and knocked the legs out from it and it fell over. Engineers have told us since then that that's not the case. It had big steel pylons or whatever that went down and curved up to anchor it. It was lifted up, it straightened those out, and it landed on its top. And there was a lady who was washed out of her home because of that. Her home had been hit by the tornado, and immediately then that came. I often wonder, what was she thinking? Where the heck did this water come from? Our public works superintendent was trying to get to their facility, and he said, before I knew it, I was driving in water up to my headlights. But he didn't have time to stop and think, where did it come from? But it was later, and he went, oh, okay, I get where all that water came from. I can't imagine what that woman thought. We lost our entire water treatment plant, our downtown commercial historic district, 2 large residential neighborhoods, every city municipal building, the county courthouse, and they owned another municipal building that they lost, 7 churches, and upwards of 100 businesses, 200 homes. But I'm going to tell you what we didn't lose. We did not lose that drive to survive. When I said this is a story about people, it most certainly is. I had taught at Mayfield High School for, I usually say 150 years, because I'm sure that's what my students thought it felt like, but I taught there for a long time as a U.S. history teacher. And we are a small community of a little bit less than 10,000, and if I taught their parents, I taught them. And when I realized that, of course, we're going to fight to rebuild because this is our hometown, then I kind of breathed easier. But those first panic day or two, you just think, well, we'll never survive this. But when you're fighting for your hometown and things you love, of course you do. Our city attorney at that time, tonight we have with us our current city attorney, Jay Matheny of Denton Law Firm here. He is a Mayfield born and bred. In fact, I had him in political science class. You live long enough, you teach everybody. And so our current city attorney, I had also taught him when the tornado happened. He resigned not long after. He lost his law practice and had some struggles going on, and he got us through the debris removal. And when he told me he was resigning, it hit me just for a minute, but then I thought, I'm going to go find Jay Matheny. And because it's been very important to me to have Mayfield people rebuilding Mayfield, and I'm so thankful to Jay for continuing that with us. So you know the story. We like everybody else, was tuned in to WPSD on the night of December the 10th. And I had never in my life paid that much attention to a weather forecast. I had never in my life been to my basement when they said it, I said, I'm one of those rednecks. I go out, stand on the front porch, and I'm like this looking. Anybody in Graves County, and this question, and the answer will be yes. Do you think Noah Berggren and Trent Okerson saved lives that night? And the answer is a resounding yes. And they sent me to my basement about 9:15. It's a Friday night, of course, and I, like every woman does, and excuse me, gentlemen, but when at the end of a day, before I get into bed, there's a period in there where I watch TV and whatnot, and all of my undergarments are off. And so I'm in the basement with no undergarments, and I was clothed but didn't have the essentials on. I'm listening, hoping that I don't hear anything. And what I hear, because I'm about a fourth of a mile, maybe half a mile most, in a direct line from the candle factory, and then closer to one of these residential areas that was a complete loss. And what I heard was not a train, like you think you've been told that's what it sounds like. To me, it sounds like when you're landing in a jet and they reverse those engines, and it's that roar that you hear. And I think it lasted about 2 minutes. I've asked the National Weather Service people, and they said, you're about right, about 90 seconds. And when it ended, and I didn't hear glass breaking or trees falling on my house, I was prepared, like, remember the ice storm, and if you heard those trees fall, that's what I was thinking I might hear, and I didn't hear anything. And for just a second or two, I thought, you know, it just picked up and passed right over us. But it didn't. And so the first phone call I got, this is our fire chief, Jeremy Creason, who I also taught, and he called me pretty quickly. And till the day I go home to glory, I won't forget what he said. Kathy, it's bad, it's bad. I can't get the bay door open to get the ambulances out. The building had taken a direct hit. This is later on, but I wanted a picture of him standing there because he hooked tow straps to those aluminum doors and pulled the doors open to get the ambulances out where they could reach the people that needed them. Until that, our first responders retired that came immediately. Those not on shift that came immediately, they ran through the streets calling out, who needs help, who needs help. You couldn't get through for all the debris in the streets. And very quickly, farm machinery appeared. The transportation, West Kentucky Transportation Department was amazing. And it didn't take long to get to where these ambulances could get out and do their jobs. And I watched them come back in all night long and get their tires patched, and come back in and get their tires patched. And after the 11th time for one of them, that was it. It couldn't go out anymore. I got to the fire station. It had taken a hit, but our our generator hadn't. And so this was the only place in town that had light. And it just became just where everybody ended up. Our state legislatures, our county and city leadership, and first responders. And during that time is when I, of course, heard about the candle factory. And Chief Creason said, I want to prepare you. We think we could lose up to 30 people. We lost 9, and that's too many, but it's lots better than 30. We had people out there immediately. It was hard to get to because, of course, all the traffic and then all of the debris in the road. And what happened out there was just miraculous. The people who came to help, by the time I got out there the next morning, there were rescue teams really trained to do this. Every rescue squad, every EMTs are trained to do this, but not to that extent. And there were already teams there from Louisville and Lexington who had come. So after I got this call from Chief Creason, I thought, okay, I'm going to leave my basement. He said, we'll send up somebody for you. And I thought, I better put, a bra on because WPSD might be here in the morning. And the next day, I'm so thankful I put my bra on because it was Good Morning America. So that was a beneficial move on my part. So I watch and wait, and here comes the policeman to pick me up. And when I got to the fire station, there were friends of mine whose home I taught with, whose homes had been completely destroyed. The fire station was full of people who had come to take shelter there with truly everything they owned with them that hadn't been damaged. That's a sight you don't forget. That's a sight that will stay with me forever. And at one point, Chief Creason called the city school bus garage. We knew there had been a shelter set up at Mayfield High School. And he said, we don't have any vehicles to get. Can you send a bus to get these people? And the answer was, we don't have any buses. So they had all been destroyed. That piece of property had been hit as well. So all night, Graves County High School sent, here they came with water and football players carrying water and just, what can we do to help? That was all night long. The hospital set up a triage unit there. And all night long, our first responders are in and out, in and out. At one point, Chief Creason and the sheriff took a side-by-side or some kind of vehicle that could get through, and he came back, he said, it's worse than we thought. And they were just downtown. They hadn't made it to the residential areas that were past there. So at some point, there's a lull, because everybody's where they need to be. They're being taken care of. And I went in the fire station, and I started taking off. Of course, it's December 11th, and they have a Christmas tree there with like fire trucks on it and different things. So I take them off, and I don't know, just anything else to do. And I'm putting them in my purse, and I dropped one. And he looked at me and said, we just can't have anything nice when you're around. I mean, we're standing in rubble, and it's just, so I've got those Christmas ornaments, and not Christmas of 26, but Christmas of 27, we're going to put those ornaments back on a tree. So at 6:15 the next morning, I remember looking at the clock and thinking, I bet it's light. I'll go outside. Another sight you don't ever want to see, because it was so much more than we thought. It was devastation everywhere you looked. And the residential neighborhood that abutted the city property was just gone. It reminded me, you've ever opened a box of matches that's full and you open it with force and they spill everywhere? That's what I thought. And so across the street is FNB Bank, and I saw our flag over there tangled up in all of the debris. So the firemen are walking around, we're just in shock. So I go over and I dig that flag out and I hand it to these guys, and they immediately start folding it in that such respectful manner. I have that flag. And so that flag kind of weaves itself in and out of the rest of this story. But I had talked to the governor 3 times during the night, and someone got a message to me that he needed me to be at the candle factory at 10 o'clock. So the security out there is so strict. Of course, he's in. The National Guard's already there. I go with the police chief. We have some trouble getting through the security to get back there. And I get out of the car, and we didn't say anything. We just stood there and hugged and cried, because it was just a horrid movie-like set sight. You don't think anything can just, I've got some pictures here I'm going to show you, that anything can look that so much rubble out of a building that had stood there not very long prior to that. So we talk for a minute, and he says, I'll meet you back at the Emergency Operating Center, which was the upstairs of a bank there on the bypass, CFSB Bank. So this is a view you all saw a lot. This is our courthouse taken during the night that night, and then as it looked from above, things didn't even look like buildings anymore. We heard from a gentleman in a World War II veteran who said, I was in Germany, and this looks just like what I saw when I was there. The candle factory the next day, it's unbelievable to me that was a building. I don't know if you know that site where the candle factory was. It's out on the south part of town, and there was a Hudson Ag dealership there, and those big farm machinery just looked like Tonka trucks that kids had just thrown all over the place. And that picture with that white vehicle in it, that looks like a junkyard, like where they've just taken stuff and discarded it. And I couldn't tell you what this other vehicle is, that yellow thing, but it's a powerful, powerful thing when this wind goes through. this was one of the school buses I told you about, and then a volunteer fire truck that's just damaged beyond recognition almost. And then this was my church, First Methodist. I taught children's choirs there for 42 years. And so in that rubble there was a beautiful, beautiful pipe organ that meant so much to us. And, you know, you think about all of the events that have happened there and all of the laughter that's been in those walls, and the tears that have fallen in those walls, and what has happened there, and it breaks your heart. And then you realize it's just a building. Your church is still okay, your congregation is still okay, but it does hurt to see these. We had 3 of churches like this, these 100-year-old churches, which no way can you build those back now. We truly did not need all this space anymore. You can't find anybody to play a pipe organ anymore, but it still just breaks your heart when you realize that these 100-year-old buildings are gone and cannot be replaced. This church, our new church is under construction at this time. The Christian church, which was as old as our church, it is under roof at this time. They haven't moved in it yet. And the Presbyterian church still has plans to build. The Baptist church, which was in this location, they have 4 buildings, and their structure wasn't damaged. That's where Jay goes to church. But to repair everything and remodel was $20 million. And they had their first services in their Easter Sunday of this year. That was a glorious, glorious day. We all stood outside, and there was prayer and some talking, and then we just entered the church together. On the Sunday before December the 10th, those churches, of course, are just a block away. So we started at the Methodist on Advent, to do an Advent walk. And we started at the Methodist, and we had about a 10-minute service there. We then walked to the Christian church, we had about 10 minutes. And then, like all good Christians, when we moved to our good church-going people, we moved to the Presbyterian, we sang some songs, and then we went and ate. And we had such a good time that evening. We just couldn't believe we'd never done that before. Well, I mean, and we said, of course we're going to do this every year after. If we had known we were in our churches saying goodbye to them for the last time, you couldn't have stood it. You couldn't have stood what was coming. But we did. So this is what the inside of our city hall looked like. Petra knows this well. Does it give you PTSD, Petra? I had in my office a little card when I was in college. Richard Nixon was the president, and he invited our political science class, come to Memphis for a reception. And I had a card this big that was tucked in a picture frame. And so I found that on Christmas Day after that, and it wasn't in the frame, it was behind the frame, it was there, and I found that. But most everything else, as Petra can attest to, we just trashed because it's not fit to serve. Probably on, I don't know, day 3 or 4, the department heads finally got together. We had our wits about us, and we kind of all got together the first time to sit down. Our city clerk had gotten all these envelopes in the mail, and she hadn't opened any of them. And so we were all up in the EOC, and we started opening them. And they were donations, there were checks there for $500, for $5,000, for $10,000. There was a $20 bill in an envelope, and there was one envelope that we opened. I opened it, and it had $2 in it. All of the other donations have been so important to us, but that one's the one I will never forget. You just don't forget that. People saw what you were going through and put $2 in an envelope. The City of Mayfield received from that $150,000. The city government, the community received untold millions, which was just amazing. But the city received $150,000. So if the person who sent a check said, I want you to buy those policemen some ice cream. That's exactly what we did. We got a check from a church, a Baptist church in Ohio, for $5,000. Give this to a Baptist church that was hurt. So we called because we had two of the Baptist denomination. Can we split this? Absolutely. We had checks from Boy Scouts that were sent. Can we send them? We did everything. And when that money that we did what they specified, when it was dwindled down, there was $80,000 left. And I'm going to show you a picture in a minute of this Dunbar Park, which we created, and I'll tell you about that. But that was the seed money to build this beautiful park that we are so very, very proud of at this time. The traffic, I talked to somebody earlier and they said, we just wanted to come see it. Of course we did. We all wanted to see. And the traffic was just horrendous. And people want to check on their property. And this is a historical event. Of course people want to see what's happened in this community, whether you live in Mayfield and Graves County or whether you were from a little bit away. So when I met the governor at the candle factory, he said, we need to go back, I'll meet you at the EOC. And of course he's the governor, so he just whizzed right through all this and moved right along. I was with our police chief, who I think is the best police chief, not only in Kentucky, but in the United States. He's an amazing man. He wouldn't speed if his head was on fire, though. And God forbid he turned those lights on. So we are stuck in this traffic, and they're calling from the governor's waiting. I said, I'm trying to get here. So we finally get there, because he hasn't been to Dawson Springs yet, his grandparents' home. He hasn't been there yet. We know that's coming later, as soon as he leaves Mayfield. So I know he wasn't waiting for me at the door, but in my mind, that's the picture it is. And I walk in and I see him, and he says, Mayor, the president has tried to call you 3 times and you didn't answer. And before I could even think about it, I said, Governor, it doesn't say the president's calling on my cell phone. And I thought, okay, Kathy, tone it down a minute. So he goes, okay, hold on. So he goes, yes, Mr. President, I have the mayor of Mayfield on the phone. Now, I'm a history teacher. That sentence was never anything I thought I would hear, and that I would be the one that the governor hands his cell phone to, and I pick up the governor's phone and say, Mr. President, thank you for calling. That kind of jerked a knot in me, because until then, I'm just getting through each minute. We're not yet 15 hours past it. I thought, okay, you are the mayor, and buck up. And so it just kind of put everything in perspective. I had a role to play here, because the night before at the fire station, one of the retired firemen came up to me and he gave me a hug, and I whispered in his ear, I said, Dale, I don't know what to do, because everybody had a role. The first responders had a role. People to take care of the refugees who came had a role. And there I stood, and he said, right now you just need to be here. So that got me through that night, and then this phone call jerked me into where, okay, we can do this. So I've done a lot of things because of this that you just do it. You don't think that you're going to meet the president. You don't think you're going to be at the White House. You don't think that, I mean, I love politics, so it was just, I couldn't believe it. So 2 very important press conferences. The one where the circle lights are, that's the upstairs of the EOC at CFSB Bank. Standing, this is the last of the press conference. I'm standing there. Behind me are the governor, the head of Kentucky National Guard. This gentleman on the end was the head of Homeland Security, Mayorkas. And listen, I practiced on that name. I heard James Comer call him Maracas, and I thought, I know that's not right. So I practiced for Mayorkas. And standing next to him was Deanne Crispell, the then head of FEMA. And somewhere in that crowd is Jim Cantori. You know, the joke is if Jim Cantori shows up, get in your basement or hide because you know you're in trouble. And so they told me, you're going to speak last in this group. Well, I don't have anything to add. I mean, these people have facts and figures, and we're coming to help you and all this. And I think, well, what can I? So I told the story of digging that flag out. The flag that had flown at our city hall and fire station, and I found it and went across the street. So I told that story. Well, this is on Sunday morning. We're barely into this thing. And I like to tell a story, and so I kind of did my best, and I saw people wiping. I said, you know, this flag stands for so much. It's beaten up, we're beaten up, but it will fly again. It may not fly on a flagpole, but we will never get rid of this flag. And I thought, thank goodness I could pull that out of my repertoire. That's not right, that's not what I was going to say, but anyway, I could pull that up and say, have something to say, because these people these are the big shots here. And I got through and I thought, okay, I got through that story. I'm good. So keep that story in your mind there. So the second picture is a candle factory. We're standing in front of the candle factory there. This is my police chief's there. Right behind me is assistant fire chief, and then of course others, Kentucky State Police and different ones. They were so nervous about this press conference because this was Sunday morning, and people were already talking about lawsuits against the candle factory because maybe they didn't let people go home. That wasn't true, but you still had to be careful about what you said. And I think they were nervous about me. They didn't know me and didn't know how I talked, but it was just, be careful, be careful. And so I was really nervous. And then what's going on behind is still this search and rescue that's going on. So that was, I know what I can remember what day it was by what I have on. So I know that's what I put on. No, that's Monday. Sunday, this is Sunday, the other one, and then that's Monday. Not that it matters at all. So we began to get leaders to come to us, and I truly believe that every one of them was there for the right reason. I do believe that. On Friday evening, I was standing with my daughter in front of the rubble of the courthouse, and I'd just done an interview. It was dark, and it was that historical hotel you mentioned, and I looked and I see a gentleman by himself just walking up the street. And as he gets closer, there's nobody else around. As he gets closer, it's Congressman Comer. And there were no cameras, there was no publicity, there was no media there, but he just was there. And I think that's what our leaders need to be. Just like Dale Usher told me that night at the fire station, he just needed to be there. I needed to see him there. And so they became support for me and rocks for all of us within the community. The Saturday after, I never thought this line would come out of my mouth, but Mike Pence was there, and I'm talking there with him and his wife, and I say to him, Mr. Vice President, I'm so sorry, I have to leave you now, but I have to go get in a car with Mitch McConnell. I mean, good grief, I'm from Mayfield, I'm a history teacher. Mitch McConnell has been a true friend to us. And then, I think that was on Friday or Saturday, the Sunday after, not the Sunday of the weekend, but the Sunday after, this group of people came from UK. They were led by John Calipari, and there's those, I can't tell them, they're basketball players back there. But behind the young man with the mask is my all-time favorite UK basketball player, Goose Givens. So we had a bunch of kids, they were partnered with Nike to give away shoes. This is at Barclay Lodge. And they brought shoes. They said, get your basketball teams there, get kids there, bring kids who are affected. And John Calipari, after this hug, he said, now I want you to show me students. He said, you know these? I said, I do know these students. These are my students, some of them. He said, you show me the ones that lost their homes. And so I would introduce him, and here's what I saw. Him shaking hands with them, and not one hand left without money in it. It was never mentioned. The kids went, he didn't, and moved right on. I think tragedies and disasters bring out the honor in us a lot of times. That's a memory of John Calipari. I don't care if he puts on Razorback red. I don't care where he goes. Now, if he goes to Louisville, I may have to have a little come apart, but that's my memory of John Calipari. Vice President Pence it was just such an honor to have him there. Once again, no cameras, no publicity, no media there. Senator McConnell, as you'll see, there's somebody holding his umbrella. I, of course, am carrying my own, and that's how it works, but he's become a great friend to Mayfield. Senator Paul came and talked with us. This picture here is one of my I'll say this a lot, it's one of my very favorites. This is Franklin Graham on Christmas Eve. They fed anybody who wanted to Christmas Eve dinner at Graves County High School, and Ricky Skaggs was there to do a concert. I'm standing between our sheriff and a local minister. If my mother had known that on some Christmas Eve in the future I would be praying with Franklin Graham, she would have held on. She wouldn't have died that quick, because I just think it's, to her, it was God, Jesus, and Billy Graham. So I do love this picture. I didn't know then what a friend Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham Foundation would become to us, but I'll show you that in a minute as well. The president came on Wednesday. I got power at my house and water on Tuesday night. If I had showed up at one of your houses on Tuesday night, I was going to wash my hair. I didn't care how I did. So if you saw, I could have come to your house and said, I got to wash my hair. I'm going to meet the president tomorrow. Who you don't see in this, of course, here's Lieutenant Governor Coleman, former Governor Brashear. This is our Judge Executive, Jesse Perry, the president. This woman was not a deacon, the leader of one of the churches that was destroyed in Mayfield, and then the governor. Who you don't see, but is back here anywhere, is Congressman Comer. He's the only Republican in that picture. There's never been any red or blue in our recovery. There's never been any red or blue in our support on the state level or the federal level. And when one of my favorite pictures I have in my office is the president, the head of FEMA, the head of Homeland Security, and James Comer sitting facing each other on Air Force One flying to Mayfield. And I was thinking, when I was thinking about telling you all this, that I thought, let's see, so I saw James Comer on Sunday. This was Wednesday, but he met them the Air Force One landed at Fort Campbell, and then he got on the plane there, as did Governor Brashear, because that's where all the Kentucky people met them there. I stood on the tarmac of Mayfield International Airport with Lieutenant Governor Coleman. We realized that day that we had both taught AP history to students that we loved, and we had our hair, we wanted to look right. I mean, she said, have you ever met a sitting president? I said, in fact, I have. She said, well, I haven't. So we, of course, if she was old like me, she could have met Richard Nixon, but she wasn't born then, I'm sure. So as a former history teacher, all of everything that goes with that presidential visit, which I'd never seen like this before, of course, who had. And I had a Secret Service agent for myself. I'm sure not to protect me, but to keep me from wandering off. And so they said, you're going to be in car 4 in the motorcade, car 4. And I thought, please don't let me get in the wrong car. And so, but she and I are standing out on the tarmac, and here come these 3 Osprey, I don't know what they're called, helicopters, or I don't know what they're called after the Osprey part. And this group gets off one, I'm assuming press gets off of another, and there were lots of people there I never saw again. But they land, and the Lieutenant Governor says, here they come. And of course, it's not one Marine One helicopter, it's 2. And so I turned to the Secret Service agent, I said, I know you see this all the time, but I'm about to have a come apart here. And he said, it never gets old. And so they land, and as soon as the wheels touch down on those, I look around at all the National Guard, and they immediately, it's a touching thing when you're standing out, because the airport had been hit too. They got the runway cleared off for them, but and I don't care who the president is, whether you like him or not, but when the president comes to just show his face in your hurting community, it meant a lot. It still means a lot to me to think about it, and it meant a lot to our citizens. There's one picture I have where the First Baptist Church minister, of course that church had been hit, and he's standing there with a bunch of high school kids, and they're saying, we need a selfie, and there he and the governor get right in front of him. It was an uplifting experience for us. It didn't matter to us that time, how are you going to help us? That came soon enough. It was just, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for wrapping your arms around our hurting people. And that's been true for me with every leader we've had. This is a great story. So on the Monday after the tornado, I drive onto the parking lot to see, because that was the first time I was going to see what our office looked like. And the gentleman here in the navy blue jacket with the cap on, the red shirt underneath, that is William Higginson, one of our code enforcement officers and fire inspectors. The other three guys, when they drove into the parking lot on that Monday, I thought I recognized one of them, and I threw my arms around him. I never saw him before in my life. He was from Ohio. They are firemen and policemen. They had thrown backpacks and food in and cots. They didn't know where they were going to be staying. They attached to our police department, and they were with us all week. They were going to leave on Friday. On Thursday, when they were getting ready to leave, William, our employee, said, "You've got to see this. This Christmas tree is what stands at City Hall, and it had blown in a gazillion pieces all over. It has panels, those green is panels that fit on it. Somehow these guys got a golf cart, and they started finding the panels to this tree. Then it had a little damage in the back. Now she's kind of like the lady walking out of the toilet with her slip tucked in her skirt. You can see her hind end, but she doesn't know it. She thinks she looks great. But they got this Christmas tree up. They went to Walmart. They bought lights, and somehow got it connected to electricity. In the midst of all this damage downtown, we had a Christmas tree. As long as I'm the mayor, this is the only Christmas tree we'll ever have. So if you come to Mayfield during Christmas, I think we've kind of got ours put together in the back there where underwear is not showing, but this is our Christmas tree. And it's been on that lot every Christmas, the Christmases since then. So our fire chief, Petra, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, love you too, bye-bye. Our fire chief called me. We got so much help from outside sources, and he called me and said, "I may be on the road and call you for permission, but if there's a disaster somewhere else, we're going." So roll forward to July of that year and the flooding in eastern Kentucky. So once again, Chief Creason here in the middle. Chief Creason supplies our firemen taking in water, and who does he run into in eastern Kentucky? They have been everywhere. They're in Georgia. They are every disaster. These three guys are there. They came to us at the 1 year mark. They did the walk with us. They went to the ceremony to commemorate that. They have become some of the best friends that the City of Mayfield has, and I am so proud to call them our friend. If we get a bad weather forecast, I know who's going to call. Are y'all going to be okay? We're going to be fine. So we were proud to send a team to Jackson. They ended up in Jackson, Kentucky for the flooding, and we were so proud to be able to help them out like we had been. This is a beautiful photograph that was taken by a photographer named Ryan Hermans. This is that Christmas Eve. We're two weeks in. This is the Main Street, Broadway. The rubble on the right is the Presbyterian Church. The rubble on the left is the Christian Church. No power anywhere in town. And they get some lighting, they pull cars up and hold a Christmas Eve service there. Ryan worked, I think, here at the Sun. I think that's where I met him first. My daughter worked for the Sun a long time ago, and he's a great journalistic photographer, and I'm thankful to have an original copy of this picture, and it's just very, very special. Another picture that shows us what our town is like. So we get through Christmas. Let me get my notes back here. I've got to move on to another page. Eastern Kentucky flooding. Okay, so when the president came to Mayfield, I'd gotten a text late that night before he came on that Wednesday that said, have you not gotten our emails about the president's visit? I said, we don't have any power, we don't have any internet. So we text, and then they said again, like I'd heard before, you will speak last. Oh my gosh, what am I going to say? Because once again, it's all those same people who have all the answers and me, a history teacher. And so our police chief said, tell them that flag story. That's a great story. And I said, okay, I've got a story. So you will speak last. They didn't say anybody else would speak. So we go to a hangar there at the airport, and it's the governor and the president and our council members and our department heads are there. And so everybody talks. I get to my talk. I tell my flag story. And Chief Kent, is our police chief, He's a graduate of Indiana University in English literature, very well-spoken man. He doesn't really like to speak in public. He's very good at it, but he's always prepared with a script that he's written himself. He's just eloquent. And I get through, and the president says, and Chief Kent, he's sitting next to me, and I could feel his stomach already rumbling. He's going to have to say something. And so the president says to him, Chief, I understand you lost your fleet. And what Chief Kent meant to say was, well, we lost a lot of vehicles. We didn't lose the entire fleet, but we don't have a mirror left. And what he said was, we lost that, we lost it, but we don't have any beer left. And so it was just kind of a moment of levity there. So we do that. So then we get downtown, and as we're beginning the walk through the downtown with the president, he has on a ball cap. And I said to him, I don't know why, Mr. President, that is a really cool cap. I think I'm going to need you to give me that cap. I mean, we're seeing all this instruction. That's what I come up with. And he says, well, you know, Mayor, that is, and as soon as he started, I knew what it was. He said, this is a Beau Biden Foundation cap for his son that passed away. So we talked a little about that and then moved on to the real reason he was there, not that I wanted to steal his cap from him. So think about, I told you about, it doesn't say the president's calling on your phone, and the beer comment, and the cap comment. So the morning after the president came, I'm leaving to go to the EOC where we stayed for weeks from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, and my phone rings, and I look at it, and it says White House. Now, I'm not stupid. I answered that phone call. And so it was somebody, I don't know, and they said, the president would like to send you a Beau Biden Foundation cap. We need your home address. Gladly, I had that hat. So later in the day, we're sitting up in the EOC, and here comes Chief Kent. He's 6'5", I'm not. And he comes in, and he's got his coat like this, and he says, you got your big purse? I said, am I here? Of course I've got my big purse. He said, I got something you need to put in your purse. And he pulls out a bottle of Four Roses, bourbon. Or I guess that's bourbon, I don't know. And so he said, well, the White House didn't talk to him, but they called somebody, I don't know who they talked to, and said, the president would like to send the police chief a case of beer. And this person had the forethought to say, well, our chief doesn't drink beer. He said, well, does he drink anything? He said, yes, Four Roses. So somebody had gotten that bottle there. And our fire chief, who was just thankful, he had to speak too, but he said, I didn't say anything stupid, I didn't get anything. So we have those prizes, but I doubt that Chief Kent ever drinks that Four Roses at all. So we get to February of 22, exactly 2 months, and this is when the governor sends the first travel trailers to all of the affected areas, and then it's the groundbreaking on our first home to be rebuilt. Several nonprofits sprung up in Mayfield to do the rebuilding of these homes. We've had the Samaritan's Purse organization build a 60-home subdivision. Mayfield had a lot of subpar rental property, and as tornadoes are wont to do, it got wiped out. Now, if our homes are destroyed, we do have insurance. It's up to us, maybe not, but if we own your property, we can take care of ourselves. We'll struggle, but we'll take care. And these renters, they're just at the mercy of their landlords. And so this 60-home subdivision that Samaritan's Purse built, funded, built, bought the land, developed the land, built the 60 homes, was the first. They've done that before, but they've never done it for people who were renters. And every person in a home in that subdivision most likely had never owned a home. They didn't at the time of the tornado. And I do have the plat for that, and I look at those 60 homes when they first got it, and I'd see names of some students that I'd had, and I'd realize, this is going to solve some generational poverty here. And we are so, so thankful for that. This day was so cold. If there's our judge executive sitting next to me in that blue jacket, if it had been bigger, I'd have climbed up in there with it. It was so cold and windy, but it was the beginning of our rebuild. This story, the Anderson family founded Mayfield, and they had given their home on a corner there in Mayfield for a park. So the mayor before me, Teresa Cantrell, had developed a beautiful little pocket park there. It had big trees and the benches, and it was just wonderful. So in February, I get a call from a gentleman. He said, I'm in contact with a law firm in Washington, D.C. They want to come do some landscaping. Well, if you were down in Mayfield, even through the summer, We didn't have any place to plant anything. We've still got debris piled up everywhere. But I happened to think about this park, which has lost all its trees and some of the benches. And I said, I do have a spot. So the gentleman that called me worked with an organization, and he had gone to Asbury College. And so on their spring break, which was in February, it never got above freezing that day. He brought these students down. They cleared this corner lot and began working on it. He stayed in contact with the law firm out of Washington. We didn't have a fountain then. It was bare. They paid for the landscaping. There are 24 trees there for the 24 people we lost. And it's a beautiful park. There were 4 of these benches. We lost 3 of them. They replaced those. Of those 3 monuments, just the top of one of them was gone. And so in I think early May of that first year, the members of the law firm came down and did some work on it themselves. And this was the first normalcy. This was the first rebuilding normalcy we had. We have an amazing garden club. I wouldn't get in their way for anything. They are powerfully mighty women. And they have taken over the beautification of this, and we're so very thankful of them for that, and thankful to have this pretty park community. Let's see where we are now. This is more normalcy. This is you see the debris trucks. They have these big arms, and they come over and they pick up the debris and put it in the truck. Then they would take it to our landfill and weigh the truck before it went in and weigh it when it came out, and that's how we knew how much debris was. I love this picture. This is our fire chief and our police chief. They kind of took matters into their own hands. This was a warm day, so I'm thinking it's somewhere midsummer maybe, and they said, we can open these streets back up. Nobody told us we could, but we're going to. So they put on their gloves and got out there and took that matter into their own hands. I don't know about Paducah, but Mayfield has these wonderful small diners where the wisest men I've ever met meet every morning for breakfast and coffee. I don't know how we made it through the tornado, because until this one got rebuilt, the barn, I don't know where they were. Our wisdom was gone for a while, but now they're back, and every Friday morning, I mean, if you go into here, and another one that's been rebuilt, if you don't have on red and black for Mayfield Cardinals, you can find yourself someplace else to go. This is what the first houses that started being rebuilt looked like. Probably of the 200 homes, then we count the Samaritan's Purse into that, so there's a little over 200 homes. We quickly, thanks to one gentleman, formed a partnership, the nonprofits did, with the Amish community. And there have been over 2,000 Amish people. They've supplied all the labor for these homes that have been rebuilt, not the Samaritan's Purse, but all of those. Some people, I had friends who lost a home who could afford the materials but not the labor. So they bought the materials and the Amish built the homes. You know that if these homes are built by Amish, they are well-built homes. We're so thankful to that community of believers that came and helped us. So this is the water tower over there on the far side being rebuilt. It was fun to watch that thing go up. I'd never watched a water tower be built. And then this is FNB Bank. FNB Bank sits right across from the courthouse, and they were the first to just plant their foot and say, we're here, we're not going anywhere. And I was with a group there today, and I said, we'll never, ever, ever forget that. We did have things to celebrate. You know, Mayfield's here we are. This is what we look like, clean slate downtown. But, you know, we're a football town. So, let's see, let me get this straight. I'm good friends with the mayor of Fort Mitchell, and that's where Beechwood High School is. And Beechwood High School and Mayfield we just see each other on a state championship game frequently. So 2 weeks before the tornado, Beechwood beat Mayfield at Mayfield to knock them out of going to a state championship game. We did not take that well. We don't like to lose, but we know this is a big foe. So the mayor of Beechwood and I we've become good friends. We both serve on the Kentucky League of Cities board. And so the next year, as things were lining up, it looked like if everybody won the games they were supposed to, Mayfield could possibly play Beechwood in the state championship game. And so I thought, we've got to commemorate something Beechwood did. Before they were out of school, after the tornado, here came Beechwood school buses, Beechwood coaches, Beechwood fans, and these buses and the trucks they bought were just full of things to bring to Mayfield, Kentucky. It was their football players. It was just the heart of them came to the heart of us. So you fast forward to this next year, and the week before the championship game, I contact the Kentucky High School Athletic Association, and I say, if this happens, I email them. I said, we would like to have some kind of commemoration. And they said, thank you.
You know what? Did I used to go to school with you?
You did. Everybody did.
My name's Elton.
I know. Thank you.
I used to go to school with her.
It was a long time ago. Thank you for coming. And so I don't hear back from them. So Beechwood and Mayfield win the semifinal. So we're both going to the state championship. And on Monday morning, I get a call from Keisha. It says, you know better than to jinx any game. You do not talk to us about this before those games are played, and you're going to the championship. So what they let us do was do the coin toss. The mayor's standing there behind me in that vest, and our coach and their coach and principal and superintendent and whatnot. We did not win this ball game, but we did the coin toss, and I gave them a plaque, and it's the state of Kentucky with a star on Mayfield and a star on Fort Mitchell. And it says, let me get this right, honorable opponents, forever friends. And I don't ever want to lose to them, but I'm forever grateful to them. This was the first year commemoration with a walk from the candle factory to downtown. One of the industries there has done this every year. This is one of the subdivisions. These aren't Samaritan's Purse homes. This is another nonprofit there with the water tower behind it there that has built these homes. Same ones. The Samaritan's Purse is called New Hope Acres. They are the 60 homes I told you about, and then we got to celebrate again. Tracy Atkins' staff called and said, we'd like to shoot a music video in Mayfield. I went, okay, yeah, right. Not only did they shoot a music video called Somewhere in America, the first line is, straight winds came through and knocked everything in town, and so if you haven't seen it, it's wonderful. What it grew into, they were just going to shoot the video there with Mayfield as the backdrop. Trace came up and interviewed a lot of first responders, and it touched him so much that his video team stayed for a few days, and they made a documentary about the tornado and their survival. And I'll be darned, look what he's holding. That documentary won an Emmy. It hasn't been released yet. I've seen it. They came up and showed it in Mayfield. But they weren't, had they started out to make a documentary, they would have had an avenue to show it. But that wasn't, it came later. So my goal, they did it at the Mayfield Theater, and I hope that we can get it out where at least anybody who wants to can see it. But I don't have any say over that. So he's a very tall man. Once again, I'm surrounded by tall. This is our Dunbar Park. The city school bus garage was located on the site of our Dunbar School, and that it was completely wiped out. The city was able to purchase this and to create a park there, especially to commemorate the historical significance of the Dunbar School. And you see a lot of people on that picture at the bottom far left there who attended that school. But it is a beautiful, colorful park on this site of devastation to honor two artists from Mayfield, Ellis Wilson and Helen LaFrance. They are pictured on this pavilion. You can barely see them on those pictures, but to commemorate this historic significance of this. Sorry. So we have rebuilt. This is our Public Works building at the groundbreaking. They moved into this Public Works facility in February of this year. Then we had the groundbreaking. I love that when firemen break ground, they don't put on construction helmets, they put on their helmets. And so our fire station now is being built. It's not under roof yet, but it's close. They have been told they'll move in March of 26. This is the groundbreaking for our city hall and police station. This picture of the governor, very Democratic Andy Beshear, very Republican Mitch McConnell, standing on either side of me is so indicative of how government should work, how government should help people who are hurting or just their constituents. And that's all we've seen. You see Jay there with helping us to break ground there, and that was a great day last October. This is what our new City Hall and Police Station will look like. And they have just started dirt work on that. this week. I always close out with this picture. Now, everybody wants to be famous, right? But not like this. So, this is a copy of the Dallas Morning News. The date on this is Wednesday, December 15th, not long after. The lady who wrote this letter to the editor sent this to me, and she circled it. And I'm going to read you the first part of this. It says, Kentucky Mayor, a true leader. I have a new hero, the mayor of Mayfield, Kentucky, Kathy Stewart O'Nan. At the height of the need to get information out to everyone and assure everyone that everything was being done, this brave lady stood in front of the cameras and gave it to us straight, and with the compassion of someone who knew and loved the people she was talking about. The best thing was, she did not take time to comb her hair. And that's all of us in Mayfield. We didn't take time to comb our hair. We didn't take time to worry about who am I helping. We helped. We received help. We helped each other. And I am so proud of where we are today. I'm so thankful to so many people for that. I couldn't begin to name them. And about every month or so, I see a new picture I never saw. I hear a new story I never heard. The city of Paducah was good to us. I have a good relationship with Mayor Bray and your fire station. My goodness, they carried us for a while. I think we, for a while, were like that picture, which I never really liked, but I sure do like it now. It's called Footsteps, where there's Jesus walking and you see the footsteps and you don't. That's because he was carrying us, and I really believe we've been carried a lot. It's the biggest honor of my life to play this role in Mayfield at this time. It's also an honor to serve with former students that, as a school teacher, that's a big deal. You want your students to, it doesn't matter what they do, you want them to do something and play a role, find their place. And I see that every day. We're survivors, but you do that when it's your hometown. The city attorney before Jay said two things that have been so important to me. Jay said a lot too, but he wasn't there those first few days, or he pontificates a lot. He would have said a lot of good stuff. But Bo Neely said his father had been our city attorney, his grandfather had been our city attorney, and he said, I never realized how much I loved my hometown until I nearly lost it. And another time he said, are we going to do all of this right? No, but we're sure going to do it with our heart in it in the best way we know how. And I'm so proud of our hometown. Thank you I'm so thankful you came tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.